What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live, pirate radio style from Site B, here on a sunny small island off the coast of Costa Rica. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's the 13th day of February 2023, and it's cold. It's supposed to drop down to the 20s today here in sunny Southern California. Weird. It's time to take a look at all the tabletop role-playing game news that is going to affect the rest of the week, and what, if anything, is going on that doesn't involve our friends at Wizards of the Coast. And of course, top of the story is the Wizards of the Coast / Paramount dropped the brand new ad for Honor Amongst Thieves at the Super Bowl, which means either they paid a lot of money or not that much money, but they're expecting a lot from the movie to run a commercial during the Super Bowl, especially since they were competing with commercials for The Flash, commercials for Fast X, and commercials for Guardians of the Galaxy. And in response to that, Hasbro stock is up 16%, 16 cents since yesterday, probably due to the commercial. Following off that, we have another announcement of what we can expect for merch from Honor Amongst Thieves, and we have the list of the Honor Amongst Thieves official figures that are going to be coming around from WizKids. So these are the figures we're going to get in the Honor Amongst Thieves D&D set. Some of these might look familiar to you. First up, the Mimic. Second up, the Gelatinous Cube, my favorite monster. Third up, the Druid who turns into the Owlbear and is getting so much unnecessary attention. Fourth up, this Displacer Beast. And then that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we have a price? No, but I'm probably anywhere between 30 and 100. Now, if anybody who says, wait, those look kind of familiar, it's because these are all figures that they've done before. None of these are new, which means if you've been collecting the figures from WizKid for a while, chances are you probably have them. This figure, the Mimic mold here, is actually one of the very first WizKids ever did for D&D, the Mimic one. This Gelatinous Cube, it's not the cool one that you can open and put things inside, but this figure also, oh my God, I remember this one came out like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. This one, not new. Displacer Beast, not new. None of these are new. I don't know why they're exclusive for the movie, other than these creatures are showing up in the movie. Oh, there's also, I guess, Intellect Devourer, but even that one doesn't get the thing. And the Intellect Devourer looks like a monkey for some reason. That's not what an Intellect Devourer looks like. But again, that one's not new. And there isn't a better Intellect Devourer figure that they've done. So yeah, exclusive to the movie. Basically, you just reprinted stuff you'd already done of things that are showing up in the movie and are putting them together and charging like $100 for them. So yeah, these are not new. Therefore, they're not exclusive. Exclusive means molds or builds that have never been seen before and will never be seen again. These are all ones you've done before. What else is going on in the world of tabletop role-playing games? Level Up 5e from Ian is started to do live plays of their system. They're doing something called Against the Dragon Lords. You can find that on the Level Up 5e YouTube /Discord if you're interested in seeing the mysterious Level Up 5e actually get played. Of course, the Humble Bumble for Peso is still going on. They've extended it another week. All proceeds going to Code for America. I don't know what that is. I think it's a government watchdog organization or political or whatever. For $5, you get all the basic books you need to start playing Pathfinder. And considering the physical product is out of stock, and we will get to more of that later. It might be the only way if you're interested in. Let's see what else is going on. We have Jeannie D, who over the weekend got a chance to interview our boy Kyle, and the responses to her interview. And a lot of people were pretty impressed that she did as good a job as she did, considering Jeannie D. There was a couple of questions that she could have asked that didn't. There was a couple of points that she made that some people disagreed with. Apparently, at least one person is extremely angry at her, which is weird because that individual used to worship the ground she walked on. But all in all, I think she did an okay job for Jeannie D. Sadly, I think she is going to bend a knee and go back to making stuff for 5e. And if, Wizards of the Coast does what they said they were going to do and go after the creative fan base, she might be safe, but her 5.5K fans, not so much. So, but at the end of the day, she's a businesswoman, and she's going to do the choice that she thinks is best to keep a roof over her head, even if that means she alienates some or not all or most of her followers. But, like I said, 90% chance Holmes bends a knee, 40% chance she bends a knee. Still waiting to see how Critical Role are going to respond. If they're going to bend a knee to the Wizards of the Coast 5e SRD and say, screw you, fans. Or are they going to say, yes, we embrace our fans, we embrace the OGL, we embrace Open D&D, and we're going to do the thing that makes the most sense and make our own game under the ORC? Or some other Creative Commons open license that does not associate with Wizards of the Coast in any way, shape, or form. Which is what they should do. It makes sense on paper, but, also they're going to make the best deal they can, because at the end of the day, Matt and Marissa and Travis are businessmen, and they're going to do the choice that makes them the most money, which would be to make their own game, but whatever. And speaking of Kyle, he is making the rounds for some reason, and he is talking about the OGL debacle. Why is Kyle the new face of D&D? Because, up until a couple weeks ago, he's nobody. We didn't know who he was. And apparently, according to Kyle, he's only been bopping around Wizards of the Coast for like 2 years. And he's only recently been promoted to the position of executive vice president of D&D Beyond. And saying you're having the position of executive vice president of D&D Beyond is basically what's known as a sideways promotion, which means you get a title, you get more responsibility, but you're really not getting that much more money, and nothing you really do actually matters. It's like when I was assistant manager of produce at Target, which meant nothing. I didn't get any more money. I had a lot more responsibilities. And, when things got wrong, I was the one they blamed. But at the end of the day, being the assistant manager of produce at Target or being the executive vice president of D&D Beyond means next to Bubkiss. That's a word, by the way. Yes, Bubkiss. So why Kyle? Why not Crawford? Why not Perkins? Why not Greg? Why not, Cynthia Williams? Why not somebody who actually has legal say? Why Kyle? You would think in the Wizards of the Coast pecking order of individuals to roll out to try and dust off the ashes from the January blaze, you don't think Kyle. I mean, okay, most of the news that we got was on D&D Beyond, so vague connection, but yeah, his name was on one or two of the posts that we saw and received. So, when we saw the very first post that Kyle had his name on, a lot of us were like, okay, so Kyle's the guy they're throwing under the bus. And now it seems that Kyle is the new face of Wizards of the Coast, at least for now, which makes you wonder, where's Crawford? Where's Perkins? We haven't seen either of them since December, which is weird considering everything. So yeah, probably Kyle is the individual they are throwing under the bus. His name was attached to the controversy. He's loosely affiliated with D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond was the source where a lot of the news was being posted, and his position just kind of means nothing. So Kyle's what's known as a scapegoat. He will go out and talk and say the things Wizards of him wants to say in his own unique way, i.e. all white people need to leave the industry. And if people get mad, Kyle's to blame. And if people appreciate it, Kyle's to thank. Meanwhile, Kyle is doing the best to pad his public response since he's so closely associated with the D&D Beyond and said, what he said and posted the article that he's posted. Then of course, infinitely made the whole white people like me don't belong in the hobby anymore statement. Well, now it's obvious he's being handled. The interview with Alpha Stream, the interview with Jeannie, and the upcoming interview with Rob Woldbuilder, I probably are going to be much more media friendly as Kyle continues to pad his public perception and pad his resume. Because I'm pretty sure Kyle is smart enough to know that his days at Wizards are probably not long, especially since Wizards is using him right now as their stalking horse, their scapegoat. All our attention are focused on what Kyle's saying, and while we're all focused on Kyle and his talks with Jeannie or his talks with Bob or his talks with whatever, maybe we're not paying so much attention to what's going on elsewhere at Wizards. You know, the Kyle story seems to have attracted all the attentions of the flames of the Eye of Mordor, but nobody's really brought up the other story that came out of OGL 5e SRD, which is that apparently Wizards chose the wrong Creative Commons to place it under. And I'm still trying to look into that, but I found very little information on it, most of which I don't understand. So I'm just going on hearsay. But from what I read from one or two individuals, you know, so questionable at best. But apparently there's a couple different types of Creative Commons or whatever they're called, and they put it on Creative Commons NA, but they should have maybe put it under Creative Commons B, because Creative Commons B is written in such a way that allows Wizards to do the things they claim they wanted to do with 5.1 SRD, while Creative Commons A, not so much. And then this is sort of all talking about, you know, one of the main topics Kyle keeps bringing up is control of our copyright, control of our copyright, control of our copyright. But as of now, several copyrighted terms that were up till now unique to Wizards, like Beholder, Mind Flayer, Strahd, nobody else could use those. Those are in the CC. Those are in the SRD. But those are copyrighted. So are those the ones that they're going to go and say, oh, wait, no, we copyrighted those, so we're removing them and rewriting it, which is a concern. We didn't mean for you to have the copyright to Beholder. That was a mistake. And thankfully, the CC that this is written under can allow us to go in and change it. Or are they going to just say, oh, we made a mistake. It's out there. We're not taking it back. Great. You can have Beholder. I don't know. It's interesting. It's also interesting why Kyle. DM Kurt brought this up and I'm supposed to give him a shout out for the weekend because we made a bet about D&D Beyond going crashing or not. And I actually don't know if it did crash or not, but I'm going to assume, yeah, it probably did. And even if it didn't, still shout out to Kurt because he did a video, link down below, asking who is Kyle Brink? And what is the future of this poor man? Because as angry as you are for the words that came out of his mouth, you also kind of got to feel sorry for the kid because he's just being thrown under the bus. Keys from the Golden Vault is not out yet. I know there are some people out there saying, oh, I got a copy. And it's like, no, you didn't. Only a couple professional reviewers got a copy. What you have is the digital copy. Some people seem to be confused between the digital copy and the physical copy. But it's out, and then there'll be more out, and there's some ads for it and some videos. So far, nobody has found anything offensive about it. It introduces a new organization to your game. It's vaguely set in the Forgotten Realms. Wizards of the Coast needs to decide whether they're going to set their games in the realms or not in the realms. They can't say it's going to be world agnostic and we're not setting it in any one specific campaign world, so you can do what you want with it, and then release things that say, well, this is kind of maybe in the... No, I'm sorry. Just let Keith have the realms. He is the only one who's qualified to shepherd it correctly. Make your generic agnostic world, or set all your settings in Planescape or whatever, or Fendelvin. So yeah, heist-based D&D adventures, but don't worry, you're not bad guys. You're good guy thieves. So more leverage than anything else. There's a new book out from Critical Role. Notice on nowhere on here does it say D&D. This is from the Whitestone Chronicles featuring Ripley. If you've been watching Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon or the Critical Role live streams, you probably know who this individual is. I haven't watched yet, so I don't know. I probably should at some point and watch it. I watched the first episodes of the first season because so many people were upset about them. And I was like, what? This is just, I don't want to see what you're upset about. But then I didn't watch it anymore because I was like, well, no, wait, I'm supposed to be boycotting this until they decide what they're going to do. So I guess this is somebody who's associated with Vox Machina, and she shows up in either season 1 or season 2. And apparently she has the ability to make paper fly around her. Is she a paper crafter? Is she from, I don't know. Fantasy Age is working on a second edition. Our friends over at Green Ronin, one of the many individual companies who are possibly going to be affected by this whole OGL SRD thingy. And this picture looks like it's set in Freeport. So is Freeport going to be the new campaign setting for Fantasy Age? That would be fun because I do love Freeport. It's one of my favorite settings. And the home of the longest running D&D campaign I ever ran. So, they're doing a second edition of Fantasy Age. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more streamlined. The Age system was unbelievably clunky, trying to do way too many things. Ended up just sort of being, So we'll see what's going on. They did say that they were going to be doing more with Freeport before this whole OGL thing started. And here's a name that we haven't heard from a long time, but holds a special place in my heart. Gerps. Apparently there might be a new edition of Gerps coming out. Obviously, one of the game companies that got a lot of attention during the January OGL, OSR, ORC apocalypse was one of the original generic universal role-playing games that has absolutely no connection to the ORC, OSR, OGL in any way, shape, or form. And at one point in time was the king of the hill. I mean, let's face it, there was a point in the late 80s, early 90s where Gerps was the number one selling role-playing game in the world, and everybody was converting to Gerps. And Gerps holds a very special place in my heart, both positively and negatively. And I'm very proud of my little part in the history of this role-playing game. So a new edition of Gerps or some new love for Gerps could be interesting. I mean, if you're looking for a system to jump to that lets you do whatever you want, Gerps was at one point in time the system to do it in. And, it'd be a good system that is open source, that is not in any way, shape, or form connected to the OGL. So Wizards of the Coast can't go after you for making Gerps sandwich busters. Just saying. So what's going on, Steve? Some rumors that Gerps might be coming out? Apparently so. Steve is looking at things he says and testing the waters, and maybe we will see a new edition of Gerps. He's playing it coy. But one thing we can count on from Steve is that he has jumped on the Mork Borg bandwagon as well. He's got a collection coming out called Closed Book of Monsters for Mork Borg. This was originally a self-published, but now Steve has bought it up and he's releasing it. It's a 63-page book featuring all sorts of new, awfully horrible monsters to use in the world of Mork Borg. $25 for this. Seems a little pricey considering it's basically a zine. One company who's still making stuff for 5e is Free League. They have 2 new adventures coming out for the Ruins of Samborium. And they are both 5e. Now, don't be like, oh, Free League, blah, blah, blah. These were on the Free League calendar before the OGL January fire happened. So they have to fulfill any contracts they have for pre-existing 5e stuff, like their Lord of the Rings 5e stuff and their Samborium 5e stuff and the 5e third-party adventures they're writing. And after those contracts are all filled, they can decide if they're going to make stuff under the ORC, make stuff under Project Black Flag, make stuff under the 5e SRD. They are also writing their own SRD specifically to their stuff. They're writing an SRD for the Year Zero engine, which is the system that most of the product they've made is under, and they're writing an SRD for their recent fantasy system that they came out with, that they're coming out with. So probably they're going to fulfill their 5e contracts and then release stuff under their new OGL SRD for the Year Zero system, which is one of the systems I absolutely love. And then they'll have another one for the more fantasy specific to this one. So will we see future 5e adjacent products from Free League? doesn't feel like it. There's no reason for them to. It's not really their demographic. I understand wanting to make some 5e stuff to milk the 5e love while it still existed a year ago. And obviously you got to fulfill these and make them happen before, you can move on to new things. But I don't see them making 5e stuff in the future. But I could be wrong. And there's a Dark Souls role-playing game, if you didn't know that. And it's from Steve Forge Games. And they're also now coming out with the monster books for the Dark Souls role-playing game called A Tomb of Strange Beings. It's a 120-page hardcover for $30, filled with all sorts of monsters from Dark Souls. Yeah. So has anybody picked this up? Does anybody know about this? This is a good system, bad system? I don't know. It's out there. We're waiting to see who gets, the big one. Who gets Elder Scrolls. Whoever makes the Elder Scrolls tabletop role-playing game is the guy who wins the game, who wins the war. If Free Leagues does an Elder Scrolls Skyrim role-playing game, yeah, D&D dies. Let's face it. Yeah, that's it for today. If you appreciate this content, let me know. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Toss it out there. What do you think? Is Critical Role going to bend a knee and jump back under the umbrella of Wizards of the Coast and maybe give an FU to a large portion of their fan base? Or are they more likely going to make their own role-playing game? And what are your thoughts today on the never-ending soap opera that is 5.1 SRD versus the ORC? Let's just remember that as far as the rest of the world is concerned, Call of Cthulhu, it's still number one in Asia, Europe, South America. So, yeah. And then there are other games out there. I know a lot of the 5e simps want you to think that 5e is it. There's no other games, and nothing that existed before 5e is important, but it's all problematic. And 5e is the miracle game that will save the world, but that's what they're paid to say. So just remember, there are other games out there that are 1,000 times better than 5e. And at the end of the day, it's just a game, and it's just supposed to be fun. It's just a silly game about elves with sticks. So, God, we all just need to calm down and go outside and get an ice cream. Speaking of ice cream, if you appreciate the content that's coming out of my mouth, maybe consider supporting the OGGM Adventures. And the best way to do that is the links down below. Buy my merch from Big Geek Emporium. Several new adventures posted, all of them under $2 or under, including my Dungeon 23 creations for this month. Yeah, check it out. And I got a huge one coming up all about mushrooms and D&D plants and D&D fungus and killer plant monsters and salad golems. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. That one should be finished relatively soon. It's probably going to be my biggest one yet. That's it for today. If you appreciate this nonsense, let me know. If you never want to hear me talk about it ever again, let me know. Let's just remember that this exclusive collection of figs that is coming out for Honor Amongst Thieves are all reprints. Every single one of them is something that Wizards did before. So they're already out there, dude. You don't need to pay the $100 to get those figures. You can find each one of them for like 50 cents. That's it for today. Like, share, subscribe, support, and get off my land.